The first sound was the whine. Not a bullet, not a shelled, just a rising mechanical scream that made every hair on my neck stand up. We all knew it meant the Stukas were diving. The man next to me dropped to the sand, hands over his helmet, and I followed without thinking. The bombs hit moments later, sand and smoke bursting into the air so thick I could taste grit in my teeth. When I opened my eyes, the beach was changed again, more craters, fewer men. I had been with the 2nd Battalion when we were ordered to fall back from the outskirts of Lille. Days of marching, skirmishing, dodging artillery, all blurred into one long nightmare. When we finally reached Dunkirk, it didn't feel like safety. It felt like we run to the edge of the world and found there was nowhere left to go. The sea glittered under the late May sun, mocking us, and the horizon was empty. Just water. No fleet. There were thousands of us crammed onto the sand, a human tide pressed against the shoreline. British, French, Belgian all, waiting for ships that might never arrive. Some sat with rifles across their knees, staring at the waves. Others wandered aimlessly, boots sinking into the wet sand, eyes glazed from exhaustion. The smell was the worst salt water mixed with oil, smoke, and the stench of the wounded. Every few minutes the sky would change. A droning hum, then the specks would appear, growing into the sharp black crosses of German aircraft. Anti-aircraft fire spat upwards from somewhere behind the dunes, but it was like throwing pebbles at a storm. The bombs would fall, and we'd scatter like ants. Diving into shallow trenches, or under the wrecks of lorries abandoned on the beach. When the planes left, we'd crawl out, brush off the sand and stand again in line, pretending it was all normal. I'd lost my section the day before, somewhere along the canal near Burgos. Now I moved with a group of strangers, none of us speaking much. There was no point asking names. Too many of the men I'd known by name were already gone. We had heard talk of small boats ferrying men to destroyers further out. If you could get to one of those boats, you might live. If not, well, no one wanted to finish that thought. When our turn came, we were herded down to the waterline. Tide was low, and the sea seemed to pull away from us like it wanted no part in this rescue. We waded out, the cold cutting straight through our trousers. The further we went, the harder it became to keep footing on the shifting sand. Men were falling, dropping kit, trying to grab hold of each other to stay upright. A wave smacked into my chest, and I swallowed seawater, coughing so hard I thought I'd never get my breath back. A wooden fishing boat was waiting for us, paint peeling, the name half worn away on the bow. A sailor shouted at us to hurry, and hands reached down to drag me aboard. The boat rocked violently as more men piled in, one nearly tipping backwards into the water before someone caught him by the collar. There was no room to sit, no comfort, just bodies pressed together, shivering and silent, except for the rasp of breathing. The short run to the destroyer was longer than it should have been. Every plane in the sky felt like it was hunting just us. We kept our heads down as the spray hit our faces, the engine chugging and rattling beneath our feet. The destroyer loomed ahead, gray and massive, and the smell of diesel and hot metal was almost a relief. We climbed the rope net one by one, my hands slipping on the wet hemp, legs trembling. When I reached the deck, I collapsed against the bulkhead, too drained to stand. Round me, men were being handed mugs of tea, blankets, whatever could be spared. None of us spoke about what we'd seen. None of us looked back at the beach, but I did, just once. Over the rail, I could see Dunkirk shrinking into the haze, the black smoke rising higher now, curling into the bright sky. The beach was still crowded, tiny figures moving like ants in the sand. And even from that distance, I thought I could hear the faint, terrible whine of another Stuka beginning its dive. We were leaving, but part of me would always be standing there, boots in the surf, waiting for a boat that might never come.